Welcome to the Murphy, Sam, and Jodi After the Show podcast. You can also catch us on YouTube for the video version of the podcast. And it's Teacher Appreciation Week, right? This week is...
And Nurses.
And Nurses Week, right?
So much is going on. Teachers, nurses, Cinco, Star Wars.
Yeah, I figured, this would be a good chance to just shout out, some teachers. And, you can do the same on our Facebook page or, Instagram, or you can on the Talkback mic, however you want to get a hold of us, send us a voice memo. But we would love to, hear your favorite teacher shout outs. And I had a number of teachers. It always boils down to just, one or two, I guess, that are the most. But I could just go on because I think about how, for me, in general, even my elementary school teachers, I was, believe it or not, I don't want to say I was shy. I was just not always comfortable in the social settings at that age. When you're young, you're just figuring yourself out, right?
I know you very well.
And so I had very nurturing teachers during that time period that they would know if me or any of my, the other classmates, if something was off with somebody, and they would take the time to, I would say pull them aside, not in a negative way, but reassure and, and comfort or whatever it is that they needed to do. And that's such a special skill set in a teacher, and it's not easy to do when you've got multiple students, all day long, or especially later when you've got multiple classes and you're having to know the students in all those different classes.
Fitting that nurturing in is what really stands out to students, and a lot of times they need it. It's not necessarily in your lesson plan. So
if you had to pick one, Jodi, from it doesn't matter whether it's elementary, middle, or high school, or it could be college too, is there one teacher that stands out to you that you really think pulled you under their wing or gave you direction or encouragement?
Miss Brignac in 5th grade. I don't know what. I never walked up to her and said, I'm having a hard time. I never walked up to her and said, I'm so awkward. I never walked up and said, I feel like crying right now. Oh. She just saw it. And from the time, and I had 3 teachers that year. It was all 3 classrooms. And when I got to her classroom, which was midday, I was always so happy to be in there because I felt a special care from her. She was the one, I know you're going to love to make fun of this, but she was the one that I would finish my work early, and she would note that, and she would call me up to help her. She didn't need me to file papers. I know that now, but I felt so important to be asked to file. She would give me, I guess she trusted me too. These were like quizzes and tests with from other students. Can you file these for me? And I would file for her alphabetically in the filing cabinet. And then later in the school year, I would do things like that for her, and it made me feel so important, and I needed that so desperately that year. She just saw it in me. And then also it was in the midday, so it was also around lunchtime. If I finished my work early, which I often did, I would get called to go help in the cafeteria. I've told you guys this, and that happened during her classroom. So looking back, I have to think she said, I have a student that could help, and let me send you Jodi.
What did you serve?
I did whatever they asked me to do. I would go in, and the lunch ladies would be like, wash your hands, and I would have to put on one of those little hair nets. And I was so excited to be involved with the adults doing something like that because I was having a very awkward year, trouble with friend groups, and just feeling really out of place. So I needed that. And I was so excited to be back there in the back of the kitchen. And I remember thinking, I get to be back here and I don't have to sit there and have to do this for now. It's just anytime you get to do something different. And then I realized the kids coming through the lunchroom could see me back there. And I'm like, I have a hairnet on top of my red hair. It was very orange then. But I got to where I didn't matter because I think, I don't know, the experience with them and feeling a little bit special made up for getting picked on again anyway.
Yeah, well, that's kind of cool, though. I would think if they saw you in the kitchen, they would wonder how they could do that, too. Yeah. Every kid would want to do that.
Yeah, I mean, some of the mean kids were like, ugh, working in the kitchen.
Yeah, I would be jealous.
Right.
So since you work back there, do you have any secrets?
No,
like spinach on grass cutting day, that kind of stuff.
I didn't know to think of any of that. I wasn't that savvy. I was just happy to be helping. They didn't make me serve, which I'm glad. That would have been awkward. Here's your, Rice Krispie treat. See you next hour. And none of that was happening, but it did make me feel special. And then I would take I wore like an apron, and I'd take my hairnet off and wash my hands. And thank you, Jodi. We'll see you next week or whatever. I didn't do it every day. I did it every once in a while.
Yeah, that's sweet.
But anyway, going back to Miss Brignac, I don't know. I wish I could have gone back after. I wasn't in a place by the time junior high took over my life. I wasn't at a place to go back and say, why did you do that for me? Thank you for doing that for me. I never was able to do that. So I guess let this podcast serve as thank you to any teacher who spots that a child needs a little extra something without her saying, you need a little extra something.
Yeah. That's exactly why we want to do this today, because, I mean, the teachers deserve the shout out, every single teacher, because it's a labor of love. It's certainly not for the money and the pay and all that, and it's such an important development. You're so important to the development stages of us as kids, our own kids. I mean, it's Jodi, you and I having our daughters, and Sam, I'm sure you feel the same way. You have a different appreciation for it and a different viewpoint on it when it's your children that are going through that too, and you have the interaction with the teacher to see how they're actually, engaging from that side. There are two stories. One of them that I think is cool because Miss Olds is the person I think of. She was my third grade teacher, very similar to what Jodi was saying. But the irony of Miss Olds is she was actually very young. I think she was in her.
I was going to ask.
Yeah, she was in her mid-20s.
She married an older man, huh?
She was actually she was in her mid-20s, and I think she was the youngest teacher at the school at that time. Was
she pretty? Did you have a crush on her?
So I mean, I think when you're a kid and you look up, and I think she was cute. Yeah. Yeah.
Boys have crushes. Girls are often like, I want to be like her one day.
She was one of these teachers that had a great personality, too, because she would make the students laugh. She was fun. She was, she was very upbeat. And every teacher has a different personality, and it's great because, a different personality fits different subjects or whatever. But Miss Olds was very gregarious, I guess would be the right word. And she's the only person that I know in my entire lifetime who actually has won the lottery.
Oh, cool.
Did
she quit teaching after?
Well, she had actually become a lobbyist at that point, but she won the Louisiana lottery. It wasn't Powerball or any of that. I think it was probably before Powerball, was around. But but she was able to quit her job, and
she and Mr. Olds.
So yeah, right, exactly. So, but she was great. The biggest person who had the biggest impact on me I'll share with you in a second, but Sam, I just want to see who yours is first.
Well, mine it kind of goes back to the same reason that Jodi said. It was somebody, my third grade teacher, who I think saw that I needed a little extra attention, Miss Dewey, and the biggest one probably would be fourth grade though, Miss Brubacher, because I was going from fourth grade, leaving elementary school, leaving public school, going to a private school, which was going to be much harder.
Okay.
And I didn't have the math skills for it. So Miss Brubacher used to, and this is before I'd ever heard the word tutoring, basically would tutor me with books that we weren't using in class.
Wow.
With formulas and math problems that you're going to see these, but we haven't done these yet. And
I want you to be ready.
Yeah.
Oh.
Wow.
And it really, really helped because when I got into fifth grade and it's like, here's this new math, not new math, but new to me, it was like, boo, well, this is okay. I've read this already from Miss Brubacher, so this was cool. So Miss Brubacher and Miss Dewey. Oh, and an honorable mention since he's shouting out Miss Olds. Miss Rogers, sixth grade English. That was the one we all liked.
You loved her. You had a crush on her.
Everybody had a crush. I mean, because it was an all-boys school.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And Miss Rogers was like, wow,
That would be the only reason. All-boys school is not the only reason, but, we all have that.
Yeah.
When you're a child and you idolize an adult.
Yeah.
It's interesting to have a different adult in your life, because if you only have your, mom, dad, family, or whoever's raising you, and then you have this other adult figure in your life and you have 2 or 3 a day, in the teacher setting, it's your introduction to what adults can be like. And it's your introduction to the fact that other adults can be different.
Yeah.
It's your introduction to everything.
Interesting, though, that all three of us have talked about elementary school teachers. It shows you, again, at that age.
It's formative.
At that young age, right? It's so important, the direction that you're steered, the extra help that you get. Even if it's just a little extra attention on something, it doesn't mean you're the teacher's favorite. It just means because they're doing that for everybody, as I know they did for other friends of mine. And through middle and high school, for me, it really was a lot of the same. I remember Miss Baptiste, who I think was in the 7th grade, was a math teacher, but she was awesome because I also would struggle with, some of that, and did for later on. Basic math I could do okay at. When we started getting into all the formulas, and as that progressed into high school, that's where it got really tricky for me. But the teacher who really had the most impact on me, and we've talked about him before, but he always will be the teacher that had the single biggest impact on me, was John Dobbs, who has since passed. He lived to be in his late 90s, and he was the radio communications teacher, the general manager.
You were already in it. Like, your heart was already in it. And he happened to be a great mentor.
Well, he actually pulled me into it.
Oh.
Because I did not have any interest in radio at that time. I thought it was cool, but what I was interested in was TV, like a lot of people were. And I was more about the technical side of TV. It wasn't so much being in front of the camera. I like putting things together. I like the creative aspects of telling the story. And but as I was working through that, and he and I got to know each other, he was the one that told me, you should do this. Actually, it was somebody else it was somebody I was talking to about getting into TV, and he was the one that said, look, you're going to have tough time making money behind the camera in TV. You can choose to be in front of the camera if you want to go that way, but before you even think about that, you need to consider radio or something that'll hone your ability to communicate, ad-lib, and not worry about reading a teleprompter.
Correct.
So he's really the one that got me interested in going, we've got a campus radio station and radio program. Let me go talk to them about it. But the reason that John Dobbs was so instrumental is I guess he saw that I took it seriously because he was a former engineer. And so before all of you get to go in the studio and play with the microphones and play music and all of those things, you had to learn all of the classroom stuff, which was pretty intense, not the most exciting stuff. You're learning about
especially
electronics.
In high school.
Yeah.
He's probably getting rid of anybody who's not really serious.
And, but he always believed that if you don't understand how the electronics work that you're going to be using as tools, then you're not going to be as good as you could be. And you know what? He was right about that. I mean, literally those 12 weeks in that part of the class have served me for my entire radio career because I can have conversations with engineers. I mean, it really is, and it's helped me to articulate problems, to others. So he was right about that. I mean, it was the last thing any of us in the classroom wanted to study and do, and it was not easy. But he knew what was needed to set you up for that career path if that's where you chose to go. But beyond that, he elevated me into the next class before the next year went on. I should have completed a full year in the first class that I was in, but it was my junior year, and he said, well, you've got this tech part down. Let's move you to what was called Radio 2 was the name of that class. It was, and that was interesting. It was not very popular among some of my friends.
You were not everybody's favorite for that.
But I mean, I didn't treat it as anything other than it's the class I'm in now, and this is what I'm doing. But what was great about John Dobbs is he wanted to teach you how to be a professional. He wanted you to understand all aspects of it. He was not treating you like a kid. He wasn't treating you like a high schooler. That sometimes meant he was more difficult on you because if you're going to be in the professional working environment and working in radio, because the broadcast industry is regulated by the government and FCC. There are rules that you have to respect. There are laws that you have to understand. And it doesn't matter whether you're 16 years old, or, 26 or 36 or whatever. And so he expected all of those, things from us. So there's some people that thought he was a tough teacher, but he would actually reward you, call you out, and he would even reward you financially for that, where you could do extra work around, the station for additional money. He knew how to take somebody and teach them standards, teach them discipline, but then also reward them. It's kind of like tough love, you know what I mean? Yeah. And then all of those things that he created in me, which made me self-sufficient. Basically, what he was teaching you is that this career is your responsibility. Nobody's going to give it to you. No matter how hard you work and the time you spend, it's not always going to be acknowledged. You are responsible for you. It's almost like you're in business for yourself. So you have to learn how to be, the person who's responsible for all of that. And when I tell you that's the most invaluable lesson that I was ever taught by a teacher, he was right, because any career is tough. You know, businesses change, coworkers can be tough, bosses aren't always the greatest. You have to be so flexible. You have to be so adaptable. And I don't know how a high school teacher knows to teach you those kinds of things, but he was consistent, and it made him tough in some cases. But you knew that he respected you, because he would also give you the accolades and show the appreciation. Mm-hmm. And that's, to me, I mean, that's a one-on-one teaching experience that really goes way beyond, the call of duty. He didn't have to do it that way, but he did. And
you did get to visit with him.
I did.
Not long before he passed.
Yeah.
I think that's incredible.
Yeah.
I think a lot of teachers, whether they've been teaching forever and they're still teaching or they're retired, that moment, I know for a fact, because I have friends who are teachers, that moment means a lot to them. Whether it's planned and you say, can I come visit you? Or you run into them at the grocery store. If you just say, you made a difference in my life, you were a favorite teacher, or you taught me this. Teachers get that, hopefully, on the back end of their careers, and they've earned it. They do need to know that all the little things that they do, things that they've forgotten they've taught.
Yeah.
Kids that they forgot that they pulled aside and tutored, they need to hear it.
Yeah.
Especially if they really did affect your life. And you're still recalling their name in situations.
Yeah, I made sure that through the years, I would go back and visit with John Dobbs whenever I could. And he would never accept the kudos. When I would tell him how grateful I was for everything, and how important. I mean, he built my career, really.
What would he
say?
But
anyway, he would just say it's about the students. It was always it's about the students.
That's a good answer.
So I think it was a real blessing. We got him inducted into the Baton Rouge High Hall of Fame, and recognizing his acceptance speech was the same thing. It's like, this is not for me. This is about the kids. And the thing is, there were so many students that never really wound up going into media, but it didn't matter. The skills that they learned served them well. The way that they talked about, it's your communication skills, your interpersonal skills with others, understanding rules and just things, life stuff that you don't really get to know until you actually work in the field and do that. He was planting the seeds for. So I think that when I last saw him, he was 86 years old, 86, about to turn 87. And it was an awesome conversation. And I'm so glad that I got to have that visit with him. His wife had passed. And he was even wearing the old T-shirt from back in that day. And
was he fully aware of what you have done in your career?
Oh yeah, well we gave him. Yeah, I mean I'd given him a tour at one point.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean he's followed through that time. He followed Murphy, Sam, and Jodi in the show's growth in the different cities, and he did. He was aware of all of that, but he would not let me give him the credit for that. Mm-hmm. But anyway, good dude, miss him. And, this is exactly why teachers deserve the biggest, thank yous and accolades. And my God, you make such a difference in people's lives, and we know that it comes from a place that's genuine because
it's who you are.
Right.
You're either can do that or you can't. But if you're a really good teacher, you are doing those things.
Yeah.
Whether you ever see it come back around or not, it is there.
And it may take years to come back around.
Yes.
Yeah.
Missed any part of the show? Get it all on the Murphy, Sam, and Jodi podcast.